Meghan Markle's Spotify podcast, Archetypes, will not be renewed for a second season because it was... Anyway, Meghan reportedly signed a £20 million deal with Spotify for the podcast in late 2020, but insiders close to the audio giant claim that the royal couple did not meet the productivity benchmark required to receive a full payout. So not only have they been dropped because it was... They're not going to be paid because it was... Yes?
My favourite is the statement, Omid Scobie tweeted it, from Harry and Meghan, that somebody leaked this to Deadline in LA, conveniently located, by the way, that it was a mutual parting of ways. But my point is, at some point you see the word Archwell Audio, Archwell whatever, and mutual parting of ways. And it translates to these two people are very challenging to work with. Mm-hmm. You know, mutually parting of ways is a nice, it's a nice sentence, but the 40th time you hear it, you realize you have to think, are you the problem? I have a Spotify podcast. There are multiple ways to monetize your Spotify podcast. Why couldn't she have gone to a subscription base and charged everybody X amount of dollars a month?
Because she'd have made absolutely no money.
Yeah. Why couldn't she have done audio, like read ads? And
are you telling me that you've maintained your Spotify podcast whilst Meghan and Harry have been summarily axed?
You are savage. That is exactly what I'm saying. But no, I'm you know, I do everything myself. And if you look at Meghan's credits, she had recruited several of Oprah Winfrey's executive producers. I think, JK, I'm not kidding, I think she had 17 producers on her podcast. And that's the ROI on that for Spotify probably doesn't make sense. I don't think that was a very lucrative plan.
You know, it's quite interesting. We've talked over the months since they decided to relocate to California. And you know, I've said from day one that I got they wanted out of the Goldfish Bowl, but I also have a problem with you bleating about privacy, all of them, because you then don't do the Netflix and you don't do the book and all of that. I'm really taken with your view this morning. And because, you know, people in this country have said she's awkward and she's a pain in the backside for many, many times. People, oh, you're really being unfair, that's not fair, bless them, fine, absolutely. You think that this is another example of impossible to work with, demanding, difficult.
I do, and I know you have in front of you that BBC comment.
Yeah, the BBC say they would never have approved the Harry and Meghan Netflix documentary. The BBC says the corporation couldn't relinquish editorial control to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex like Netflix did. Maybe Netflix are beginning to regret working with them.
I do think that's coming, because if you look at the statement they gave to Deadline, or the leak, it's actually a leak, the initial story, where they said they're reevaluating some of their relationships and some of their brands to develop content at more appropriate places. First of all, I'd stress Spotify is the #1 podcast distributor in the United States.
And please listen to Die For Daily Podcast with Kinsey Schofield, who's got a podcast, whereas Meghan's been dropped. I love this.
And I know, and I'm on Spotify talking about Meghan. That's so bizarre. But Spotify is the #1 a podcast production company in the United States, and they said they're looking to go to the new best podcast. You're at what's better than #1. It's almost like leaving the royal family. We're going to leave the royal family to pursue better opportunities. The royal family was the best opportunity. Spotify is the best podcast home for you.
Do you think that your fellow countrymen and women are beginning to tire?
Oh, 100%.
Really?
Absolutely. And I think my point with the BBC is the BBC said it was one-sided. Harry and Meghan had too much editorial control. Again, I think that this points to Meghan being difficult. This Archetypes podcast, I think she was probably very challenging to work with. Remember, their initial agreement was for Harry and Meghan to have a podcast. They produced that cringe Christmas special with Elton John and Tyler Perry. Bizarre. And then Meghan decided to go off on her own and do Archetypes, where she was supposed to interview normal people making a change in the world. And we got Paris Hilton. So nothing, they always sway from the plan or sway from the promises. And
it always sounds like it's about her, doesn't it?
Well, the content she produced was 100% about her. She would cut people off and go into her own stories, and they all seemed to be a dig at the 17 months she associated with the royal family. But I think she's challenging to work with, and I think that that's why she's no longer with Spotify. They're trying to say it's mutual. I don't believe that it was mutual. I believe she was fired. And I think that that going forward, other people, corporations, and individuals are going to question whether or not they are worth the headache.
Where does it leave them? You say, in terms of the American public, their popularity is waning. Companies don't want to work with them. What happens next?
Unless William Morris Endeavor, who Meghan just signed with in the States, can secure a amazing brand deal for her. Is it L'Oreal Hair? Is it Maybelline? Is it, what kind of brand?
L'Oreal Hair.
Oh, well, you know what I'm saying?
No, but I get it. That's what they're reduced to.
Unless she can get an ambassador deal like that, where she's on a mall kiosk or on a Boots kiosk, she's going to have to become an influencer. She's going to have to become a digital content creator.
I mean, you look at that. We've only got a couple of minutes, sweet, but it's like, I love the headline, Meghan. I get it, yeah. I mean,
still not as good as Your Royal Highness, but we love it.
Absolutely.
We're here for it.
We are, all right, you're criticising the left. It is getting to a point where you imagine they're flailing around, wondering how they can take this back. And I'm a great believer in karma, and I do think that making your money criticising the very institution that you don't want to be part of was always going to end in tears, Kins, right?
And it's not the way the people work here, and it's certainly not the way the people work in the United States. The Kardashians, the #1 reality star in the country, but the Kardashians will claw other people's eyes out to protect each other, and Harry and Meghan stab their family members in the back at every turn.
It's going to be an amazing thing. We've got 1 minute left. I'm going to put to you my favourite subject of the week. Your country in 2 years will choose between a man, and I'm not being disrespectful, who doesn't know his name, and a man who could actually by that time be in prison but could pardon himself. I'm
going to blow your mind. I'm team Robert Kennedy Jr.
It's not happening.
I'm sorry. I am obsessed with him.
Are you?
I am. And
that's unhealthy, but it's not going to happen. Not Biden or Trump for you.
No, I don't think so. I think if anybody is the winner, it's going to be Ron DeSantis.
Won't get the nomination. Kinsey Schofield, you are an absolute trooper for coming in. Both of us just wanted to say, Archetypes is no more. Listen, Kinsey Schofield, check her out on Spotify, the To Die For Daily podcast. Meghan Markle, don't check her out on Spotify, because she's been axed, because she's rubbish.